Hi, I'm Dan, this is at Midlife Crisis Motorcyclist, and this is the Voge I've been running for the last couple of months, and I thought it was time for another update to let you know how I've been getting on. Now, the first question is, what are we calling it? When we first rode the bike, when we were invited on the press launch, we were told it was called the 900 DSX, but then when we actually clapped eyes on the bike, you can see on the sticker here, it's called the DS900X. Now, this confusion isn't helped by the fact that you'll see it referred to as both still on the Voge UK website, and various people putting videos up on the bike on YouTube have called it both things as well, which doesn't help with the searching out the content, does it? Anyway, long story short, I think because it says DS900X on the side, that's what I'm going to call it. So now we've got that out of the way, what have I been using it for? Well, the idea was to get it in to use it for kind of the winter commute, all that kind of thing, and I've got to say, for that kind of usage, the bike is absolutely in its element. It's very comfortable to ride, the kind of upright riding position is really confidence inspiring, it's got the heated grips, it's got the heated seat, the adjustable windscreen, the cruise control, all those kind of things that make kind of boring journeys in the winter, cold and wet and all that kind of thing, just about bearable. So, and that's really what you'd want a kind of middle-sized adventure bike like this for, isn't it? So in that respect, it's been really, really good. I've been enjoying riding it as much as possible in these conditions. Now, one of the advantages of running a bike on a long-term test like this is that it gives you opportunity to kind of explore some of the other features beyond just what it rides like and all that kind of stuff. So I've been using the time to kind of get to know the connectivity, the systems through the TFT screen here and the kind of supporting phone app. And I'm going to say it's pretty impressive the way it all links up, so you can connect your phone via a little wireless and also Bluetooth, and then through that and the app and a proprietary map software system. Anyway, you download that, you download a token, that gets your nav working, it seems to connect pretty neatly on the screen, you get all your kind of turn-by-turn information there as well. So I'm pretty impressed. I mean, I've got to say, I've ridden some big name motorbike brands and their app connectivity has been less slick than what you get on this bike. In terms of other features, I've been getting to grips with the little dash cam here on the front, which is a neat little gimmick of the bike. Now, I needed to install a micro SD card under the saddle there to get that all connected up, but that works through the app as well, and you can record, it does kind of rolling footage of your riding, and you can take stills as well and generate some really, really boring videos of your commute, which I won't be sharing on the channel, but it's quite a handy little feature. Other tech I've been appreciating has been the headlights here and the little side auxiliary lights here. They've proved really, really useful on those kind of foggy commutes over the moors. Those side lights kind of illuminate the side of the road really well, and they also, when you put the indicators on, they're like turn lights like you get on a lot of modern cars. So that's a really neat feature. If there's been one criticism, I'd say the headlights may be pointing a little bit too high, and when you're on high beam it just illuminates the stars, which is not much use for seeing where you're going. And also I did have another driver actually flag me down to say that I was dazzling her, so I think I need to have a fiddle with that and maybe adjust it. There is apparently an adjustment screw under here which you can adjust the angle of the headlight beam. There's a little bit of a fiddle to get to under there's a sort of auxiliary mudguard under there, which is a little bit awkward to access the screw, but I'll have a fiddle with that. Now, one of the other things I was talking about in the previous video was the suspension and some possible tweaks to that, taking advantage of the fact that the suspension on this bike is fully adjustable, which is a pretty neat feature, again, given the price. So, as I was saying previously, I found the front end was perhaps a little bit harsh and the back end a bit wallowy. So what I've done is I've had a fiddle with the spring preload here. You can see these collars here. As you unscrew that, that comes out. I brought them one marker up to soften them just a tad. And at the back, I've cranked up the preload via the hydraulic adjuster here. The stock setting is 6 turns from fully off. I've gone to about 12, which sounds like quite a lot, but then the fully loaded setting is, I think, 16 plus or minus 1. I weigh 75 kilos plus my kit, so maybe call it 85 kilos or something like that. So I'm on the lighter side, but hopefully that addresses the slight wallowiness I was feeling before. But we'll talk about that a bit more when we get out on the bike. So let's go for a bit of a ride and see how I'm getting on. Right, so let's go for a little ride on the Voge DS900X, as we are definitely calling it. And what can I tell you what can I share with you, having now done a reasonable number of miles on it? Well, let's start with the engine, which, as I think I said in the original launch video and since, it's not an engine you're going to fall in love with. It's a very modern parallel twin, so it's a little bit gruff. It is sounding a bit ruder. I'm quite enjoying the noise it makes, but it's a functional engine. And one thing I've been noticing is that the kind of the low rev fueling is a little bit rough, so it's a bit shuntery when you're just kind of on about 3,000 revs like this. It's not as smooth as some of the other bikes I've been riding recently. It's been interesting kind of jumping on this from other bikes as well, and kind of comparing just those kind of finer details like that, which first impressions on the Voge you'd think were fine, and then maybe, with a few more miles you might think were a bit annoying. So taking a little bit of cheeky off-road here, because hey, it's an adventure bike, isn't it? So let's do something vaguely adventurous. I mean, it's not really that difficult, it's just a slightly slithery gravel track really, but it's the kind of thing you can do on an adventure bike which you wouldn't do on your sports bike. So why not? This is actually, I think, the first time I've taken it off-road, so bit of a learning curve, but seems to cope just fine. And I've got some ideas of other places I might take it in due course. I mean, I'm only on the Pirelli Scorpion tyres, so that's not going to involve any serious mud plugging, but I think there's some fun to be had on this bike, and I think it can perhaps take a bit of serious or semi-serious off-road riding. We have, after all, got a full 21-inch front wheel, so it's proper adventure bike spec in that sense. So, it should be able to do some stuff. Anyway, so back to what I was saying about the engine, and I have seen that from other Voge owners online, and there seems to be quite a kind of vibrant online community for the bikes, that there's a firmware update which I think does deal with some of the fueling issues apparently, which I will investigate, which you have to download to the bike. Now, culturally, do you want to be downloading new firmware maps to your bike? I guess that kind of depends on your attitude, doesn't it? Whether you view ownership as a kind of an interactive exercise like that, how sort of tech savvy you are. Personally, I don't think I want to be downloading throttle maps to the bike and things like that. Once I bought a bike, I think I just want to be getting on and riding it. But yeah, I think the Voge seems to attract a bit of a kind of an early adopter mindset, because you take a bit of a punt on an unknown bike and an unknown brand. So I think people seem to quite like the fact that ownership is actually a relatively involved experience. But that might be something to do in due course. What else about the engine? Now, the bike does have a quick shifter, which sometimes I use, sometimes I don't. And I just used it then. It seems reasonably smooth. Again, it's not the slickest in the market, but I think one of the things I'm learning with a bit of time with the bike, and this is why long-term tests are so useful, I hope, is that when you do a launch, you know, there's kind of so much to take in, and some of the kind of perhaps slightly rougher edges kind of slip by, but I think the overall sense of this bike, the value for money thing, is obviously its major attraction, but once you actually start living with a bike, you get a little bit more critical. And I think, like I was saying about the engine, some of those just kind of slightly rougher edges, power delivery, fueling, quick shifter, things like that, that you might forgive or not notice on the test ride, start to show. And I'm really interested to, I'm hoping to book out the BMW F900GS, the bike with which this of course shares an engine, and just kind of get a sense of the difference of whether riding the bike from a big manufacturer, a recognised manufacturer like BMW, whether that does bring an extra level of gloss, whether there is a sense that the extra money you spend on the BMW is getting you something. So that will be interesting. Hopefully something to talk about in the next video. But, well, I say there's some rough edges. They're not deal breakers by any means. They're just kind of things that you notice. But yes, in terms of the quick shifter, it's a useful thing to have, but I think I'm smoother changing gear myself usually, and that will kind of be my preference. But yeah, a nice thing to have. And what about the suspension modifications that I made? That reduction in the front preload and the ramping up at the rear, yeah, I think that does seem to have helped the balance of the bike. I don't know, there's not much science behind it, I was just kind of baking it up as I went along really, so. But to my taste, it seems to have just balanced the bike out, kind of evened it out, the kind of the balance between the forks and the shock at the rear. So I might add a little bit more rebound on the back possibly. Again, it still feels just a little bit wallowy, but it seems to feel better than it did. And in terms of the riding experience, although generally I might have said that adventure bikes aren't necessarily my thing, I am coming round to the fact that at this time of year, when things like comfort and heated grips and all that kind of stuff, when they're more important than more frivolous concerns, shall we say. But yes, I can kind of see the attraction of a bike like this, and I'm enjoying having a bike that's comfortable and I could do some motorway miles on, and just kind of not have to worry about so much But yes, there are a few things to tweak. That headlight I was talking about, definitely an issue. That's another thing I need to look at as well. And I also need to have a proper play with the navigation system as well, see how that works. The display here is pretty slick, I've got to say. You know, it's packed with functionality as well. So one thing I have noticed is that when I'm riding across the tops late at night, the screen can be quite bright, quite a distraction. I find that in modern cars as well with their screens. So if there's a way of dulling down that brightness a tad, which I'm not sure there is, but that'll be something to look at as well. But generally speaking, there are a few rough edges, like I say. Certainly there haven't been any kind of reliability wobbles or anything to suggest that there will be, so I'm taking a bit of comfort from that. Because of course the unknown factor is one of the things about these bikes that might put you off. So yeah, nothing to suggest it's not going to be reliable, but we'll put a few more miles on it and I guess we'll find out, won't we? So there we go. Oop, a little bit of a slither there. There's a bit of an update on life with the Voge. Seems to be going pretty swimmingly. So we go, a little potter around the local lanes just to give you a sense of how life is going with the Voge, and I think, as you'll have seen from that, I am coming round to this whole adventure bike thing. I think previously, as I've said, if not sceptical, then I've just perhaps not been quite kind of feeling the love for this format of bike. But I think, kind of as I hoped really, riding one through the winter months on the commute, all that kind of thing, it's kind of opening my eyes to what they're all about and the strengths that they offer. So just in terms of the comfort, the kind of the extras like the heated grips and all that kind of stuff, the tech, all that is proving really, really welcome as I kind of rack up those winter miles. And if not a bike I can ever see myself completely falling in love with, or a format of bike that I can see myself falling in love with, I am, you know, respecting it a bit more, and I can see why people love them so much. In terms of the Voge itself, it's really, really impressing with all the stuff that you get on it, all the tech, you know, things as I was talking about before, like the extra lights, the cruise control, the blind spot warnings, the luggage which I can use on the commute, all that kind of stuff. It's proving really, really useful. And there's obviously a little bit more to unlock about the bike. The fact that it's a great unknown is quite interesting. I'm seeing quite a lot of owners with the bikes posting videos up on them, sharing their experiences with them. There's obviously a lot of people interested to know what the bikes are like to live with. So to those ends, if you've got any questions, if you've anything you'd like me to kind of check out or explore while I've got the bike, then, you know, just throw a comment into the thread below the video and I will respond to you there, and, you know, look at that for a future video. But I think from here, now that I've got, you know, got a bit of mud on it now, so I've at least dabbled in some very, very light off-road, so we'll see, maybe do a bit more of that over the coming months, see how it copes with some more serious stuff. But apart from that, I think it's just a case of racking up some more miles, getting some more experience with the bike and sharing that with you in future updates. Anyway, I hope that was interesting. If you enjoyed the video, please hit like. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. And for now, I'll say goodbye. Thanks for watching and ride safe.